Well, greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Going to get in and do some research tonight and just have a general open panel and discussion. Welcome, brother. How's it going tonight?
Shalom, shalom. Doing all right. How about yourself?
As usual, still alive. Been a while. How you got something going on, or?
Um, the last time I told you that I was going to be working on making a new channel, and that's what I've been doing actually.
Oh,
I got everything all set up. I just haven't done my first broadcast yet. But this is that is my new channel's name right there.
what's that?
The homeless
The
AI.
homeless AI. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you heard that, folks. The homeless AI on YouTube, a new channel from our brother Danielle here. Please feel free to go check it out. Hit that like, share, and subscribe over there, folks. In the meantime, you guys know most of the issues that we have in life, as I've expressed, has to do with sealing those or signing those documents. And that when you sign those documents, what you're doing is signing contracts. Yesterday's video, I briefly mentioned the thing about the mailbox rule, or known as the postal rule. And so I'm going to go back over some more information on that as it relates to a video I recently did on postal policy, its basic function. So I'm going to pull that up, and we're going to watch some of this first. The fact that at one time stamps were literally used as money, but they're not intended to be used as money in the public venue. However, according to the Postal Service, it is in fact their monetary system. It works as money in their system because they're the international money changers. And this goes to the disbursement postal money orders. It was mentioned to me today, reminded me that I wanted to mention it. Somebody else posted on it, and the fact that the disbursement postal money orders are not negotiable. And that's because they are already set at the world standard. The disbursement postal money orders are not negotiable because they are already set at the international standard. That international standard is the value of the papers. Nothing more. It's not a gold standard or anything. It is set as a standard of the papers. And again, not because of the gold, but because it's the Postal Service that has the Postal Realty Trust. They're the ones that operate the real estate investment trusts, and that is what they use to fund the Postal Global Trust Fund services as it relates to the contracts that everybody's running using that address known as a postal address. See, so anybody in any country can use any nation's currency or reserve currency to purchase postage stamps in those countries. But within the post office, that postage stamp has one value, no matter what country it comes from. So no matter how you think and have been indoctrinated to believe that the United States is the monetary dollar, you've been deceived. Again, like I said, those constitutions and contract articles declare that the Swiss franc is the monetary weight and measure. not the US dollar. And again, it's not the Swiss franc or anything that backs this stuff up. It's the real estate investment trust. It's what sets the value. And again, just because it's a stamp in the United States doesn't mean it's the same value stamp in another country. It still goes through that conversion, but the conversion is set by the value that the postal system sets, not the Swiss franc. And in between the US dollar and that Swiss franc is the post office. They, again, like I said, are the money changers. So it says quite times some effective steps, and it's quoting a portion of another article, which is in an older paper. This is a digital recomposition, and they just started, and it says quite time when it should have something there before it, like a ... there. It's called an ellipsis to let the reader know that there is something prior that's not included. So there's a grammatical error right at the beginning, first and foremost, in the posting itself, according to the style that's supposed to be used for public reading, to let a common reader know there's other elements they might want to look into. So anyway, from there it says, and it should be something like, it is quite time. So it should be like, it is quite time some effective steps were taken to stop the use of postage stamps as currency. So I don't know if that's truly what it said before there is, but
can we pause it for a second, guys? Sorry, I meant to interrupt. Right. So greetings, my fellow friends. So so we're talking about like a piece of paper which is a promissory note, no? It's a promissory note.
It's a contract, more or less. It's a basic form contract.
Okay. So it has no physical value, though, does it?
No.
Exactly. So the only physical value is the gold, which the banks own, right?
No. Again,
go on.
Again, it's the land that they're valuing.
Oh, so they're valuing the land now, the property.
Right, the real estate investment trust.
Sure, that makes sense, 100%. So, I live in America, and I've seen the rising of the inflation that's going on over here. What can you tell me about that?
That's their manipulation, again, like the real estate investment trust supporting the Postal Global Trust. The real estate investment companies, in order for them to make profit, they've got to be able to manipulate the business value of the property. And again, they don't have a business value for many of the properties. People that own property privately and pay taxes, that's a business tax they're supposed to be paying, and yet they're not running a business. So the tax assessor isn't able to place a business value on there. So what they do is they place the land value on there.
Okay, so that's going deeper now, like down the rabbit hole of like the landage of who owns the land, who really owns the land.
Exactly. It's Leviticus 25 verses 23 through 25 say the land shall not be sold forever, for it is mine. Ye are strangers and sojourners with me. In all of the lands of your possession ye shall grant a redemption. And if your brother had sold off his belongings, and his kin come to rebuy it, his kin shall redeem his property as well. See, we're supposed to be redeemers. We're supposed to be buying back the debts, not putting people into debt.
And where did you read that, my brother?
That's Leviticus 25 verses 23 through 25 in the 1611 King James Version of the Bible.
Sure. I know King James. So explain to me who wrote that.
Does it matter? That's what the scriptures are, the foundation of the Constitution.
It does, my brother. It does matter who wrote it.
It would
What
be
matters?
Moses.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like, it matters that it's man-made. It was written by man. Everyone's been here trying to explore something, in their life, trying to understand who they are, whether you use religion or anything else or other means. Do you understand?
Of course.
Yeah. So we have to come to this point of understanding, where are we going? Like are we going to allow mankind to waffle us up again? Your fellow brother, like in fucking Parliament, in Congress. You know what I mean? Like,
No, that's why I revert to scripture. That's why I show everybody the scripture. And instead of filling out those documents and signing them as contractors, you use the scriptures as a benefactor.
Yeah, but sometimes, sorry, brother. Sometimes the scripture doesn't always appeal to certain people. They'd rather like to hear in the modern day time of the message,
Then tell us what that modern day. Then tell us what you think that modern day message is.
Be yourself. Love you and love everything out of you, because there's two of you: the inner and the outer.
I think that's the basic message of
We're all the same.
I think that's the basic message that I put out more extensively. If you've listened to me, I tell people many times to not believe me, not believe your neighbor, not to believe the government, and for crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. This is the roots of know thyself, so you can love thyself. Once you can love thyself, then you can love thy neighbor.
Yeah, because it's a hermetic principle.
Correct.
The outer self, the inner self. As above, so below, so as above.
Yep, we're no better than the next guy, but yet we're all
just experience this fucking ride of life, as you call it. This trip. It's a fucking trip, bro.
Well, that's what all of life is. It's just a density of life, a density of light.
Yeah. I'm so traveled. I've traveled around this fucking world. Lived in Canada. Lived in the north of Scotland, of the Highlands. Lived in the south of Spain. Lived in Greece. Now I'm in America. Like, I love America, and there's one thing why I love America, because it's the freedom, what you guys fight for.
Absolutely. It's too bad we've got so much cognitive dissonance going on. We can't even agree with each other to bring an end to the fight.
Right. And being British, living in America, it was really weird because, like, we weren't taught when we were kids about, like, how we fought against the Americans, like, on Lake Erie.
Oh, I'm sure that's what the history books are full of. You've got history that is the story of a victor somewhere, but if it's shameful or something, they try to hide it.
Hide it out, right?
That's what you'd be surprised to find out the origins of Yankee Doodle. The American song Yankee Doodle is the British. It is the Americans making fun of the British wearing those wigs.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree, because being British, it's like, when I look back in the courts and everything and look at these fuckers wearing these wigs, it's admiral law. That's what it is. It's admiral law. They're still on the ships, and you're standing in the dock.
Yep. So anyway, we're going to continue on with this real quick.
Let's go.
That would be said to make this a full statement. So it is quite time some effective steps were taken to stop the use of postage stamps as currency. They never were fit for such a purpose, though the absolute dearth of small change. They have been of some service to the business community. So here's what I'm saying. If you've got $1 in one country, you buy $1 postage stamp, it's $1. The millage rate is the percentum. the percentum, the cents. They can break a dollar down into 100 parts. It's the minimum requirement for a monetary exchange system. But currency, to answer any good end, must have some essential value. To answer any good end must have some essential value. It must either be of intrinsic worth, like metal, coins, or represent somebody's credit. So in 12 USC 813 and 12 CFR 204.2, the concurring Code of Federal Regulations that enforces it, a deposit is the money or its unpaid, the balance of the unpaid equivalent. So that's the representation of somebody's credit, of which the financial institution is obligated to give credit or already has given credit. Credit card is a card, plate, or other device used to obtain money, property, services, or labor on credit. What's a Social Security card? It's something used to obtain things on credit. Yet everybody uses it, and it doesn't operate on credit. It operates as a pass-through for them to turn around and place insurance liabilities. This is an insurance underwriting risk that they transfer to you, as if though you are a resident, because that's the claim on the record by use of that national address format. Use a different format, and it shows clearly it's not the normal national format, so they must take a clearer look at it. This is why I don't use last names when sending things through care of. It's Keith, stop, care of Joyce, stop, and then the street name and the city, state, and zip in brackets. That shows it's a private communication. No last names. Therefore, there's no use of a legal name. Therefore, it's not a legal identifier. So if it's not a metal coin, but rather a piece of paper, it represents somebody's credit. So a coin is an asset. The paperwork is a collateral for access to an asset. You don't go around issuing papers telling everybody that this guy owes this guy money. That would be a fault in advertising, where you're wasting your money putting out a word that doesn't matter to anybody anyway. See where I'm going? That of the government, of a corporation, or of private individuals. So those private individuals are the ones under 5 USC 552A, records maintained on individuals. The individual is noticed and identified through enumeration at birth, wherein the state creates a state vital statistics jurisdiction for each individual born, and that means it is an exclusive jurisdiction for each individual. So the government and corporations get all of their credit from private individuals, no matter how you look at it. The government and corporations are extensions of credit. And because they are put in a position of extending credit to make sure contracts are valid as a third party intervener to make sure, then they hold an obligation of that surety. Language is specific. That's why it's known as the United States Postal Service and is the registered agent for the post office, which is an international post office, not the United States Post Office, but the post office, which is the trademark holder of all the patented and copyright materials and products that they use in their services worldwide. Specific law is specific. The only intrinsic value of these stamps consisted in the fact that they might be used to pay postage. So what we have is a philatelic association. It's a club, lectures club. They collect stamps. Okay? They collect. Taxes are duly paid by stamp. And if you duly pay a tax by stamp, and that stamp is from the post office, then what are you doing? You're paying the post office. Stamps. Now, under obligations and other securities of the United States, they have a statement that says stamps and other representatives of value. And then down as the closing part, it says you canceled United States stamps. So even the canceled stamps hold value. It's a circulatory system as they collect them. So it's not just a stamp, it's a United States stamp. And that circulatory system is the fiat documentation known as the paperwork. That's what circulates. And just like law of the land is different than the supreme law of the land, because they added something to the law of the land, which was already antecedent to what they say is supreme law of the land. So when you look up SUP, it literally means supplemental. It's something added unto, where the scripture says you're not supposed to do that. And then REME, R-E-M-E, means a bundle. So what they did is supreme law of the land is a bundle of laws, wherein the scripture tells you there is one law, and that is to owe no man anything but to love one another, for that is the fulfillment of the law. I want to take a minute to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Welcome, everybody. Galeon, I don't know what happened to you, brother. Welcome to come back up. Thomas, good to see you. Brielle, Sheila Miller, Jimbo Khan, Freedom Fighter, anybody else out there, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There are PayPal links down in the bottom if anybody wants to share some love. And then, of course, the StreamYard link should be there for anybody who wants to join the panel. And the homeless AI is asking if I can give a written out example of how to properly address an envelope. On your end, it shows up that you're here, but somehow we lost you here on this. So maybe go out and come back up, Galeon. In the meantime, it's very simple, folks. 4-line address. The top line would be, for me, oftentimes it's brother hyphen Keith, :stop. There he is. :stop. And then there's my companion. Hi, Joyce. And it is in care of Joyce. :stop. And then you put the street number and its street name for the address line. And then you put the city, state, and zip. And the zip I always put in square brackets. Go ahead and feel free to use the zip code, but just put it in square brackets. And know that it means that you're outside of the United States. In other words, you're not placating to the jurisdictional venues of the special territorial maritime jurisdictions of contracting in the public trust, and you are actually a benefactor, And what you do in that case is you're putting the facts on the record that it is not a commercial entity, that it is in fact a private communication between two private individuals. So let's continue on. Everything else he commanded you as a ways and means of fulfilling that law. When people took them, they thought they could convert them into this use at least, and that so long as letters had to go by mail, they would have some value and might therefore be safely regarded as currency. So when you place that postage stamp on an envelope, it is regarded as currency for their system, and it will enter into their system and it will circulate in their system until it hits that final destination. Whereas you use one form of money and exchange it for another form of money, like I said earlier, the postal disbursement money orders are a non-negotiable instrument. It is set at that same rate. That's that dollar for dollar when you use that reserve currency to do those things. Again, all that paperwork is negotiable. So before you get to the non-negotiable part, you negotiate it for your benefit. That way you learn what things you can and cannot use, because they will prove whether they're beneficial or not. You'll be able to make it through the contract so that all parties receive equal consideration and equal benefit. It does circulate. It is currency for their system. Now, policy. The next one I want to go to is 39 U.S. Code 39 or 101, where it tells us the postal policy. And again, remember, folks, this is not law. It is policy. And notice it says notes. These are what backs this code. So what backs this code is a promise. It's a note. It's a promise if it's a note. It's a draft if it's an order. So this is backed by a promise. So watch and pay attention for their postal policy and the obligations we're going to be talking about. 39 U.S. Code 101. Postal language is specific. It's not the Postal Service policy. It's not the Postal Global Trust policy. It's postal policy. And that's for anything that's posted, for any accounting of any events that are placed or set in order. That's the as set. As set in order, these events occurred on these dates and these people were involved, or these things happened. That's what your postal policy is. If your postal policy is to tell the truth, then you don't need to listen to much of this. But it is important, again, letting no tongue prosper and rising up against all who would place false judgment against you. You shall condemn them. In order to condemn them, you have to know their language. So let's look at it. A, the United States Postal Service shall be operated as a basic and fundamental service provided to the people by the government of the United States, which is the federal government, which means all entities of the government of the United States, including the United States Postal Service and the Postal Regulatory Commission, authorized by the Constitution. It does not say any Constitution particularly. It says the Constitution. It does not say the Constitution of the United States of America. It does not say the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union. So there is a question at hand. What Constitution? Well, those constitutions constitute them. How about I put what constitutes me forth? I fear not, for I have been redeemed. He has called me by thy name. I am his. That's what constitutes me. The next one we got here is the Postal Service debt obligations as it regards to those disbursement postal money orders. But we have our brother Galian back. What do you got going on, brother? What do you think so far?
That last thing you said, I'm going to be writing down when I go back to your videos. That was actually a pretty good quote.
Well, thank you. All glory goes to him. So the next one we're going to look at here, like I said, is the obligations. 39 CFR subchapter J, Postal Service debt obligations. Postal Service debt obligations. Disbursement postal money orders. Applicability of Treasury Department regulations. Book entry procedures. So the book entry procedures, like I've said before, is the electronic book entry. And as we saw yesterday, it's the Postal Service that regulates faxes, emails, electronic communications, just as well as the definitive paper communications in the mail system. This is why I've told you the internet itself is regulated by the post office, the International Postal Union. It's a database known as an international bureau. And it starts with the local state's Vital Statistics Bureau from the extension of that individual record exclusive to the individual created when they're born as a state vital statistics jurisdiction. And then it talks about the disbursement postal money orders. General definitions, issuance, and it gives you the authority, 39 U.S.C. 401, 401, 401, 401, and 404 with their different sections. We can peek in on that real quick. General powers of the Postal Service is what that is all about. That's telling you about the powers of their policy. That's it. The next one, in regards to that debt, they have to maintain a Postal Service fund. Now we can look at this stuff and it says there is established in the Treasury of the United States a revolving fund. Does that sound like circulation? To be called the Postal Service Fund, which shall be available to the Postal Service without fiscal year limitation to carry out the purposes, functions, and powers authorized by this title, other than any other purposes, functions, or powers which the Competitive Products Fund is available. So this is not for competitive products. This is for the functions and powers authorized by this title, which is the policies, the service form. Except as otherwise provided in Section 2011, there shall be deposited in the fund, subject to withdrawal by check, by the Postal Service, revenues from postal and non-postal services rendered by the Postal Service. Again, the Postal Service is the registered agent, therefore they render the service. Non-postal services and postal services are rendered by the Postal Service.
I do got a question.
Sure.
So I don't know if that's the video or you are able to scroll back up or not. I guess it was the video.
Oh, no.
the verbiage that it was given, it made me wonder about something in particular. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but that verbiage basically states that the postal service should be running even if the government shuts down. Correct?
Oh yeah, most definitely. This is the judicial element. They always have to
So,
run. They have to function as the we'll call it the caretaking arm, so that if the internal government falls apart, the people of the nation still have a governing source. It's going to operate just like a pass through. If America, say, ends up in civil war, and we can get this information out, which is why I urge everybody to make a connection through the postal service. Um, we people have a right to humanitarian means, and if the internal government falls apart, we still have a way to communicate with the international venue for those humanitarian means that are no longer being provided by the functional government. See what I'm saying? This government, this government isn't all powerful. They get their congressional powers and their constitution from the world's powers and constitution. And again, that's a larger generalized agreement of the people of the world, not just the nations. You got to remember, it's the people of the nations that are putting these things into enforcement and litigation. You know, like I said, it's the people in California that rose up and decided that the plastic straws had to go. So it's still a matter of communication. And when the people get the true message, but they can't communicate, that's the devastation of humanity. That's why we have the humanitarian laws. That's why it's important to remember that everybody in this freedom of association and this freedom of the press, we have just as much power to broadcast just on this platform, radio platforms, television platforms. We have just as much ability and right to do this stuff as any news media. And that's what they're trying to shut down, because the news media has a commercial agenda to keep people in stupidity. The opposite, the people in private that are in this quote truth movement have the agenda to spread the truth. It's not about me. It's not about my brother King El Bay. Welcome. It's not about Danielle. It's about the truth. What's going on, brother El Bay?
Hey Keith, just watching in, listening to everything you got going on, seeing how you drop this stuff. I think a lot of people are. I think they're starting to awaken to certain things that understanding certain particular information, and it's starting to resonate a little bit. So they're trying to change some of the things so that people can not get a comprehension. That's why I watched a video and you was going off on somebody who was been saying it was fraud. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm I'm steady watching your videos and I'm trying to make sure that everything in alignment, because I think the biggest thing that people have to understand is our problem is that we're searching for wealth. And the wealth
Yep.
is you already have abundance. We just don't know how to come together and work together and make everything right for everybody. We're looking for other people to make it right for us.
Yep. Yep. And that kind of goes in line with Jimbo Khan says, I used to watch this guy, Big Sib. He knew his shit, in my honest opinion, but he seems to have dropped off the map. On Sunday nights, 8 p.m., this is where I'm missing the show. I used to co-host with Brian on Brian Parker on Tactical Sovereignty, and Big Sib shows up over there every once in a while. He's one of our friends. We're quite familiar with Big Sib, and he's still around, still doing his stuff, just so you know. So let's go back to this. Danielle, you wanted to talk about this verbiage, and that is, I think the first thing that pops out to me is the functions. course, we have our purposes, but the functions is what gets screwed up, because the function of paper can be of two things, public or private. And the public functions are stated in public documentation. The private is not. This is the distinction between stating your will in these documentations so that they're not taken as a contract. That's how they function in that trust. But if you can express yourself in that trust as the benefactor, like I've said before, you have the right to line item veto things on pieces of paper and negotiate them to put the proper supplemental facts on the record so that it doesn't operate in error. That way, those data elements don't get entered into the record and place a public liability on you. They get transferred and appropriated correctly. So it's so inherently important to know thyself as the benefactor for these situations. Period. Everything is trust. You do not have to operate in the contract. And if you do not have to operate in the contract, you must first then look at what qualifies you to do so. So let me see if I can pull up the next one. And like I said, go ahead and fill in the commentary in the background, guys. I don't have anything pulled up as far as research, so I'm just kind of going through here.
Well, what made me think of it first is all the BS talk about how the government's about to shut down.
Yeah, that's pretty much an impossibility. I don't care what the debt ceiling is or anything. You've got to realize this country's been operating in bankruptcy for decades. They are not going to shut it down. They want it to keep going, and they keep it at that hinge so everybody is in fear and stuff. So let's take a look at the next one, which is debts and collection. Again, 39 U.S. Code Chapter 26. This is the codification. And 2601 talks about collection and adjustment of debts. These are the adjusters, guys. The adjustment doesn't happen in administration. The adjustment happens in the Postal Service. This is why it's important to understand the title and where it belongs. Because under, like I said earlier, that real estate investment trust, we're talking about the Postal Service, United States Postal Service special regulations, relocation assistance, and real property acquisition policies. So again, when we're talking about the eviction process and stuff and the relocation assistance that HUD is responsible for, it's because HUD has a contract and an obligation with the Postal Service under that real estate investment trust that has the conservation easement that is supposed to protect animals. And animals includes man. I know it sounds like I might be the one that's babbling and out of line, but I assure you, this is plain writing and it should be very simple. Expenses incidental to transfer of title to the Postal Service. So when you see that man's name on that piece of paper and there's a title at the top, that's a document of title. A document of title is a driver's license. It's that sales agreement that you fill out at the local hospital's emergency room. It's the registration to sign your kids up for school. It's the registration mom signs at the hospital to give birth. It's the application one signs down at McDonald's. All of those things that you're signing are documents of title known as entitlements. It's going to make a determination as to who is entitled to what within that contract. And we have the next one here. I'm going to start out at the bottom as it relates to those titles of or documents of title, that driver's license and bank accounts and education records and insurance records, employment records, tax records, all of that. Those are documents of title. 42 U.S. code. This is the Social Security code, and it has expenses incidental to transfer of title to the United States. Because 42 U.S. code, United Social Security Administration, is where all of those documents of title extend from at the state level. So what you do is once they've been entered into the system, that system is a transportation system. It's a commercial system. Commerce means transportation, traffic, or trade. Literally, transportation means commerce. So all of those are commercial entities, and they're documents of title for commercial transactions. You gather them all up, and the expenses are incidental to transfer title to the agency. The agency that they extended from to begin with was the Social Security Administration. So once you gather them up from the transportation and send them off to the agency, which is the Social Security Administration, now that you've got them all pooled up in their possession, now they collectively bundle them up and send them off to the United States for settlement and clearing. Expenses incidental to transfer of title to the United States. Once it's settled in the United States, in the interest of the United States and for the account of the United States, under a full acquittance and discharge for the person making the same, me, the principal, the benefactor, the ones providing the supplemental facts to the record, it's a full acquittance and discharge for everybody so that no person shall be held liable in any court. It's a releasing of the liabilities. It's an acquittance of the liabilities. Once you gather them up at the United States and do all that settlement, now you can merge them with the new title. Expenses incidental to transfer of title to the Postal Service in a merger of Keith Little with the established trust account Keith Orland Little FBU Trust. So it's now merged with a new private trust. Greetings, Nubs. How you doing tonight, brother?
What's up, brother? Panel, how are you guys doing?
Good.
Brother Keith, you helped me co-create something earlier when we were on the apes panel. This is today's creation.
A hide box.
It could very well be used as one.
I was just gonna say, what you gonna hide?
I'm actually very seriously contemplating making flower boxes that have an empty gap with just a simple hinge setup for packages.
Oh yeah, there you go. Like a planter mailbox.
No. Like a planter, I'm hiding my package so the fucking thieves don't come by my place and steal them all.
Yep. I get it.
I think that could be a very marketable thing, especially in the major city that I live by.
Excuse me. You'll have to keep me in touch and let me know. You know, I'm always interested in that woodwork. I used to do woodwork when I was younger.
Well, this one, I did something, I don't know if you noticed, but I did something different on the top. Like on the last one, I just put a piece of wood on the top. But this one, I actually cut pieces individually and layered it. So it gave me a pattern, per se. But it's at a nice 7-degree angle all the way around. But I didn't mean to derail your show by any means to show you my creation, but I just wanted to show you that you helped me create that. Your words were in the screws as they were going.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well,
Appreciate it.
honestly, if you think about it, if I'm sitting there listening, the very vibrations of truth and freedom, you know, if I'm having conversation about these things, that goes into my work.
Well, that's one of those things I would hope everybody would kind of induct into their own life is, you know, we hear that saying, you have to enjoy your work. Now, a lot of people think that just because they're doing something that they don't particularly think is pleasant or anything doesn't mean you can't do that. This is in regards to like a little kid having to do dishes. You know, I reveled in the thought of doing dishes as an adult at the local restaurant because I knew I could do them so well I was going to move up the line and not have to do them very fucking long. So,
Yeah, anything worth doing is worth doing right.
yeah.
And honestly, the job that I'm working at, there is a garden center, and they've got all these fall mums out, you know, and it looks real nice and everything. I walked over, there's not a single cedar planter whatsoever in the entire establishment. So I'm going to bring 3 of them and see how I do.
There you go. Let me see here. I got a couple things
I've got a guy that'll build them. I can supply him with the material. Why not? You know, extra 6-7 grand.
Yeah, that'd be nice. It's those nice little projects like that, especially if you've got several of them, you know, doing things like that from home.
Yep, I've got, well, that one that I built today, I built 2 of them. I'm just not done with the second one. It's got a couple more pieces that need to go in. But the way I figure is, you know, some of these nicer houses down in the cities and shit, well, fuck, even my neighbors here, they've got big freaking porches. And 2 of these, one on each side, would look really nice filled with fall mums. And I intentionally made them more shallow than they look, so they're not 500 pounds when they're wet. You know, I mean, they're movable. But yeah, you guys have inspired something within me. I mean, it's always been in there, but nevertheless, you know, I appreciate what you guys are doing. That's why I keep on coming up and showing you. You know, I've shown a couple of DePaul and whatnot, and you guys, you inspire me. You know, and take it for what it is.
I'll be damned, I can't find it. I'll have to look it up and do another video on it. But there's the code that, well, actually, I've already done a video on it, read it. The code on the Postal Service and its actual duties in serving the people with free mail. And like I said, it's uniform throughout all jurisdictions, and everybody's been indoctrinated to believe that they have to pay for everything. When in fact, payment actually means redemption. Redemption actually means payment. You sold something off. Somebody made a payment. You came back to buy it back. Somebody's going to make another payment. It means the same thing. Just obversely, what it means is somebody sold something off, and now you're going to buy it back. So what happened is everybody sold something off when they signed a document, and now you're going to provide a redemption to buy all that back. It's called modern drawback, correction of the records. It's all you're doing. Everything you put in the record that allowed for a value to ride in that credit system was actually a derivative of your origin. Without your indexing and signing, none of that other indexing would have happened. You truly are the creator in that sense. They have to give you consideration for it. The record shows that they've never given you consideration, yet taken every bit of credit while denying you with a MasterCard or Visa, because it says debit on there, they're denying you to be treated as a creditor because they don't know the law. Let me see if I can pull that up. And again, this is, this is public information, guys. You guys can look this up just as well as I do. And so again, don't believe me. Don't believe your neighbor. Don't believe the government. Don't believe your mother, for crying out loud. Do your research so you know. And it says right here, and this is from the facts, uspostalservice.com, faq.usps.com. And I can drop this link in the chat section real quick when I get done. But it clearly says debit cards are accepted for all services, except passport fees to the State Department. Debit cards may be used to pay the U.S. Postal Service, notice the registered agent there, processing fee. So what you're doing is you're paying a process fee. That's the service fee for them to process it. Cash back allowed in $10 increments up to $50. And it says if a checking or debit card has a Visa or MasterCard logo on it, then it should be treated like a regular credit card. And again, let's look this one up. I believe it's 15 USC 1602 for definitions and rules of construction. Let me look. The term credit card. The term credit card means any card. Any card. Let me repeat that. Any card. Any plate. Any plate. Let me read that again. Any plate. Social Security card. License plate. Coupon book. Coupon book. Coupon book. Or other credit device. Like the billing statement that has coupon at the bottom. Existing for the purpose of obtaining money, property, labor, or services on credit. It's a very simple statement. And there's the statement. There's the link it comes from. And here's the link for that Postal Service credit card explanation. So when I went to the post office and I sent my communication, my conversation, my message off to the Postal Service Board of Governors, and they had me pay for it. I got a receipt that says U.S. debit. It doesn't even say Keith Little debit. It says U.S. debit now. So the Keith Little debit card information was entered into a system, was not treated like credit, and actually ends up printing out a receipt that says U.S. debit. So I question their system every chance I get. This is why I do my research. This is why I find the things that nobody else finds. And this is why I'm trying to teach these people that are supposed to know this stuff.
How do you challenge that?
Go down and talk to the postmaster behind the closed doors.
Okay.
It takes a while to initiate that kind of communication with your postmaster, but you have to do it. You have to do it. You have to be forceful and let them know I've got a serious issue. And I know you're one of the world communicators that are supposed to be communicating with the people at the people's level.
My post office.
I'm not in your contract. I'm the benefactor. I know all about your global postal trust services. I'm the benefactor. Right.
My local post office, whenever I go in to pick up my general delivery, they generally treat me with a lot of respect and dignity because I had the last postmaster removed from the position. I'm pretty sure I've told you this a couple of times.
Yeah,
but
and it's a matter of being forceful, and sometimes somebody might lose their job about it. Sometimes you might get arrested for it. You got to be careful.
Well, they didn't lose their job, but they were transferred to another post office. So every time they have to drive an extra 15, 20 minutes to and from work every day for their entire career or until they bid to another position. Yeah, that's me.
Hey, DeFreak. Yeah, he already tried playing that card. They already tried calling the local police and telling him I was sovereign citizen. I let him know that's a 30-year sentence for false entrance of a record.
Right. Yeah, that's a false. Not only that, but
you're tampering with a witness. It said he's not a national citizen of the United States and not a resident, and you're trying to apply residential code to him.
Yep, non-citizen. They keep on. Anytime I have an engagement with my local law enforcement, they always send things to the place where they think I live and not to my general delivery. And I always tell them I won't address things that are not handled correctly. I've given you the instructions in which to communicate with me, and that it's a phone call and then to the general delivery. And the reason they won't do it is because they will always write the zip code on. And as soon as they write that zip code, I just reject the letter and send it off for mail fraud. We've been around this like 3 or 4 times. It's fucking hilarious. He hates me.
Yep. And DeFreak asks, have you paid into Social Security all your life? No, I haven't. I have paid in according to certain jobs that I did have, but I did my best to stay away from those jobs because I knew it wasn't right. So there are some. And just so you know, that's known as insurance credit. That's the credit system. I assure you, I know exactly what I'm talking about.
There's also a form a person could fill out and submit to the IRS, and you'll be exempt for paying Social Security.
Well, yeah, you can retire the person. It's not a matter of are you willing to forgo all that now. It's a matter of claim. Like I showed earlier, expenses incidental to transfer of title to the agency, expenses incidental to transfer of title to the United States, expenses incidental to transfer of title to the Postal Service, because they are documents of title, and that's because they entitle you to it. Everything works as it's supposed to. You just have to understand how it works. And like I said before, my mom worked at the Social Security Administration for like 29 years. I guarantee she probably never read the Social Security Act. I've gone far beyond that, and I've read most everything I could find on the Social Security. That's how I know that the Social Security is the one that translates a given name and a family name to the legal name, which consists of a first name and last name. So it's a matter of realizing that there is a legal translation, but there is no financial statement of intent. Not once. Mom didn't sign a financial statement of intent at the enumeration of birth, and I never signed a handwritten statement of financial intent when I fill out the SS5. I thought it was an insurance program, as my mom did. Correct. Things aren't practiced according to policy, though. That is the fundamental problem with any system. They operate their policy for themselves, and they run the system for everybody else, placating that you are applicable to this law, but our policy says we've got to do this according to this so that we can enforce that law on you. There is no such thing as a sovereign citizen. They conflict with each other. You can be a follower of the sovereign, impose your sovereignty as your capacity in life by a recognition of that sovereign power. Now, if you take and recognize the Greek gods, all 12 of them, as your sovereign power, then you have a sovereignty. But you are not sovereign. Other men and women throughout history and time, both past, present, and future, will always determine your actions by your observances of them and how they influence you in this world. This is what displaces us from our original position in that sovereignty. Even if we take upon life, we end up placing some sovereignty in our wife.
Wizard, I was just curious, did you have an ad up in the local newspaper or something? It appears as if DeFreak is looking to be a secretary.
No, DeFreak's all right. I don't mind. Making good points. Not being belligerent. Knows that there's too much government.
Okay. That last sovereign citizen give it up bit, like, it's just either he doesn't know who you are, or
I think that's why he put it in quote, though, because he knows it.
Okay.
I think he's recognizing that it's not valid, but that's what everybody else wants to call you. And when they call you that, what they're doing is they're saying you don't have any rights. You're a criminal.
Right on. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have a secretary, in fact.
No.
Okay. Good stuff. Thank you for the correction. My apologies to Freak.
Our system is typically run by unethical and illegitimate defalcators, exercising conflicts of interest against the people. And I'll agree with that. This is the people that are just doing their job. These are Hitler's willing executioners, because at the end of the day, their primary goal isn't righteousness, isn't loving their neighbor. It's to love their family enough that they can go home with a paycheck and live a good life. That's all it is. And that's what tells me that they've given up that sovereignty. That's what tells me they're not living in their spiritual essence, but in the manual presence.
Have you ever done any research on the Flavian dynasty in the Eastern Empire?
Very little, but I see Danielle shaking his head. Go, take it away, brother.
What would you like to know about them?
The Flavians?
I've read about them. Yeah, I know that. Go ahead.
The reason I'm asking is because I was looking at some. It's about the fourth or fifth piece of information that I've looked into on him, and it looks like that's about the time when all this started. I mean, it was started before that, but it really ramped up within the Eastern dynasty of the Flavian rule of the time period. I could be very wrong.
I don't want to say it's where it started. Because the Eastern Empire basically became the Vatican, our modern day Vatican, which is still around today.
Right. And that's where you get all your titles from, is the Vatican. And basically, Flavian's nephew, who was a Latin speaker, not a Greek speaker. Yeah, like if you look into it, it's just like, wait a second, they were doing the same bullshit back then that they are doing now. Literally, they have not changed their game plan at all.
I'm sorry, that threw me off seeing my name in the chat. But there's also a lot of things that are tied to the Moroccan government too.
Yes.
They taught the United States basically the first fundamental of what a government is, and due to the treaty that was signed, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and that was done in correlation. Because in order for a country to be recognized as a country, another country has to step forward and first declare it or recognize it as a country. And Morocco was the first country to do so with the United States.
And that's why you have the Moroccan flag effectively represented in North and South Carolina, because it was a place for Moroccan Moors to go right after the Inquisition. I was looking into it, and like the whole story of Christopher Columbus, that wasn't who it was. Like if you look at it, and that's where I'm getting at, is the whole lineage thing is actually really super fucking important, and they've taken away these lineages and given us these false titles.
Well, yeah, and exactly, and that's what I was just going to say about the. What you mentioned there is that Morocco was the first empire to allow for the United States to maintain a sovereignty.
Yep.
However, what happens is that we find out that United States is a corporation and cannot have sovereignty.
And I honestly think that's part of where you get the Tecumseh Wars, is for that fact right there. How are you going to be sovereign?
Could very well
fuck you. We get this land from here over. And if they would have killed Tecumseh, I think that our country would have had a very different future.
And the same goes for the wall.
Yep.
Wall Street.
Yep.
With the Danes. I personally think it's, if you look at history, basically it was illegal for a Catholic to be in the United States. There was so much distrust, and when that started to creep back in, that's when all the downfall started to happen, in my opinion.
Well, you look at what Ponce de Leon did, and how the Moriscos came up through in the Nile or the Mississippi Valley. Like, if you look at that actual history, it's like, wait a second, something's not quite right, and it looks like this place is actually that place, and that place never existed as we know it.
Well, and
but that's just...
You look at the settlement of America from 1492 on. In England, they came up with what was known as the Oxford Act, otherwise titled the 5 Mile Act, where if you didn't conform to the church corporate entity known as the city, then you were kicked out of the city, and you had to remain at least 5 miles outside of the city boundaries. 5 Mile Act. Look it up. That's what they're doing today. They're still carrying the same thing. If you're not going to conform to Christianity, they don't want you around. That's why I use their Christian laws so heavily against them. It's not that I believe in them. I use them supportively for morals and directions to help guide my path in life and hold those at bay that would otherwise transgress me.
The part about transforming or conforming into being a Christian, that has changed on a drastic scale that I don't think people are aware of. It's basically changed to, if you don't conform to Catholicism, that's it.
Yep.
The point, case and exclamation point, in my opinion, would be the Abrahamic Family House that was open to the public in March of this year in Abu Dhabi. For the ones that don't know, that is a new temple that was built in Abu Dhabi, shape of a pyramid. At the top, you got the Catholic Church. Bottom left, you have the mosque, and bottom right, you got the synagogue. And it's for all to be one religion now.
Recognizing the roots and coming to a better agreement of what all the various different scriptures and interpretations mean. It's the different branches of we call Christianity this Catholic and Presbyterian and Methodist, and so they've got all these different sects of religion. Well, if we confine it down, they're all one religion that have split up into 3 different sects. We've got the original Judaism. We got the Christianity that says that Christ came and appeared, and then we have Hinduism or Muslimism, Muslim that says that the Christian Bible is the Word of God and true and correct, but it's inconsistent, so they had to rewrite it. That's basically what Muslims are doing. They're interpreting the Christian customs and views and refining them to their own interpretation. And in that, they're saying, well, this doesn't count. This is inconsistent. This is inconsistent, da, 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 da. And again, it's the uprising of Christianity that brought about the first thoughts of anti-Semitism, not from the Christian view, but from Judaism, because Judaism is the one that didn't want to agree that Jesus was the son of God.
Well, if you really look at it, and like I'm not looking to disagree with you. I study a lot of history, and the Flavians have a lot to do with the rise of Christianity because they could not beat the Hebrews.
So, yes and no. So that's when the Catholic Church basically
Rome
intercepted
the cult of Rome
or assimilated Christianity into Catholicism and turned it around, and that's, in a nutshell,
it was the
original
Hellenization.
Christianity was turned around to kill everything that doesn't believe in what I'm saying. And that is what Rome was all about. And that's how Rome was able to assimilate the mass population that was conforming to Christianity. They were losing their power. So they needed to regain it.
And DeFreak mentioned it perfectly. The way you maintain sovereignty is with military. So Rome came in as a military power to enforce an agreement that they made with the Pope.
Yep. And the Pope was the real ruler.
And by the way, guys, that was the origin of postal roads.
Yes. Yes, the papal roads. Yep. And they got them
the origin of the first trust.
They actually, if you go back, the Mongols had trusts on those same roads, and then the Catholics took over the Mongol roads in a power sweep, and basically that's where you get the Northern Crusades for the most part, to my understanding. Like I study a lot of history, and I don't study history out of books. Yes, I do. but I study history out of scholarly sources and firsthand accounts of like reading Christopher Columbus's journal or reading, contemporaries of, Napoleon and how they described him, how Napoleon described himself, how, Abraham Lincoln is a great example. Abraham Lincoln's description of himself was a dark male complexion of a swarthy Indian with curly hair. Not the depiction that we get, and that's his words for himself. Like, how are we going to argue with what the man said about himself? You get what I'm saying? And we don't get that in our public fool system, because if we knew we had a first melanated president back in, the time of Lincoln, well, that changes a lot of the narrative that we've gotten since then.
Dick Gregory was president, was
Loved
first
him.
black president before Obama.
Yep. They
I
took
love
that
Dick
away
Gregory.
from
him.
Yep. It's amazing how history rewrites itself and uses different names and places and times. Huh? Same damn thing.
Well, it really is.
Anybody can have that power, and women have been in that power before. And here we are in America, waiting, hankering for a woman president. Did you know there were women queens? Have you not heard of them?
Queen Elizabeth.
That history.
She just died.
That's why I brought her up. It's like 2 years ago. Like, how could you not know that there's female people monarchs?
Well, the thing about it is
real quick here. I want to address this DeFreak again. Giving up on your Social Security that you paid into all your life, like me, makes no sense. You're not giving up on it. Like I said, there's a record there of insurance credits that were established, taxes that were paid that shouldn't have been paid because you're not subject to them, even though you did, but you didn't know it. You can recompense them. Same with child support. Same with everything else. Unearned income credits that are sitting there, all of it. So when you do the transfer and expenses incidental and do the settlement and clearing at the United States in the interest of the United States, they're going to clear all of that up. That's what the clearing is. It's going to clear all of the records up. Zero balance. That way they're not getting budgeted out and creating a false budget somewhere else, getting transferred into some other fund and creating a false balance. It's about bringing the United States out of debt, removing all those false credits and everything. All right, go ahead, Daniel. Just wanted to mention that.
I wanted to state a fun fact about Napoleon since you brought him up. A lot of people don't realize is that due to him actually arresting the Pope, that's where the separation of church and state came from. Is because of that action right there.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you go back in, just take some time and look at some of the I'm speaking more to the chat than anything. Just take some fucking time and do some research on the past, and all of a sudden the present makes so much more sense, because it talks about all these different places and all these armies of hundreds of thousands of people, and dude, you can't fit that many people in the fucking Middle East. Like, it's a fucking desert, and I know we're talking a different time and everything like that, but if you change the history, you get to change everything, and you get to write the fucking rules. And guess what? We're under those fucking rules because they changed the fucking history. There's a Russian guy. He does science and history. I can't remember his name, but basically he went through the the narrative of history across the board, like in a linear line, and he found overlaps and duplicates, creating pockets of time of 1,000 years, and then there was a 300-year blot, and like with the way that the calendar has been manipulated and shit like that, we're probably not in what we think we are, and that's why they're so easily, and this sounds hokey as shit, but if they're able to sneak over with some of these rules that they call laws that really don't have anything to do with their power, why are they after this power so much? You know, like, does that make any sense, or am I just fucking high and rambling?
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. And since you're talking about the date and all that stuff, in my humble opinion, I believe we are in the year 6010.
What gave you 6010? Just out of curiosity, I'm very curious. Are you bullshitting, or are you like legit? Do you think it is 6010?
I'm being dead ass serious.
Okay.
Like I can tell you when the actual Sabbath is actually.
Well, you trace it back, yeah, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. You have kingdoms that never fucking existed, but they claim that they existed, and I remember who you are. Yeah. So the tribe of Dan, you're Danite, right? Half Danite.
If you want to get
Dan.
technical, and everyone from UK, Ireland, Scotland, Scandinavia, Norway, all of them are from the tribe of Dan. If you really want to get technical, you can trace it all the way back to what is the modern day Scotland, the very first king that claimed that area, that came from that area, that had a certain possession that was
the Picts. I was just listening to this shit. It started with the Picts, didn't it?
Well, I want to give yes and no. So the item that he has is you can trace it to the coronation that just took place when the king, or I don't even call him king, but anyway, when he sat down on the throne during the coronation and all that, if you look underneath him, he's sitting on a rock.
Yep.
That rock is called the Scone of Destiny.
Yep.
Which is a nickname of what it's really named, and that stone was traced all the way back to the first king, which is the first king of modern day Scotland, which had that stone, and that stone is actually called Jacob's pillow, and that is the same rock that Jacob used as an actual pillow when he received the vision, what is known as Jacob's ladder in the Bible.
Wasn't that in the land of Ur as well?
I believe so.
And if you think about it, isn't the land of Ur more closely related to Urland or Ireland? Hence why you would have Jacob's pillow in Ireland.
And my middle name is Orland.
There you go. I never even thought about that.
I'm Scottish and German.
Are you German or Garmani?
German.
Okay. Because like my family roots go back to they definitely go back to the tribe of Dan, with the kings and queens of Norway, like 8th century. That's where we pick up and we start our family lineage type deal.
Yeah.
We go way back, and we go all over Europe, because during the Inquisition, like my family members were strongly persecuted, just like all of the other good Danites in that area, because they were either Moorish or they were of the actual Jews, not the Ashkenazi that came in afterwards from the tribe of Ashkenaz, not Shemitic.
Yep. And then one thing I want to point out in regards to the church and state, you guys were discussing about its origins. I urge you to check out Cyrus as it relates to Daniel.
Yeah.
Who was interpreter for 4 kings, ending, well, maybe there's a question, they say 4 or 5, ending in Cyrus and the release of the Jews. This was the establishment of a polity through religion.
Wizard, it's the Hebrews, not the Jews.
Well, yeah, Hebrews. And
There's
that's a distinction we need to start making, because the Hebrews and the absolutely, because and that's exactly what I'm talking about, because your tribe of Shem would be your Shemitic.
Right. And I have to admit it's actually kind of like
because
this to me
it's
right
something
now,
that was stolen.
Because Cyrus, at the beginning of this, like I said, it's the beginning of the polity through church. So there really is a separation of church and state. But what happened is it's from Cyrus, and he is the king of Persia and Media. That was the introduction of the person in Media.
And where is that Persia in Media? The original Persia in Media. You look at the correlations. If you really want to go delve into history, I've mentioned him before on your channel. I hope you don't mind, but there's a guy, he's Coromeo. He reads books, and he'll sit there and read and read and read, and he doesn't get all the words right, and it's quite entertaining on that end. But nevertheless, the information that I've learned from those books, because they are old books, and it's scholarly sources. It's not some bullshit source. It's like you see the history that we've lost, and like he hasn't put it together that's how we have the system we have now, I don't think. But nevertheless, when he wakes up to this truth as well, and it goes hand in hand. When you know where you come from, all of a sudden you're freed to do things, and it just comes naturally, in my opinion. For instance, take your own experience being Hebrew in origin, on 2 different sides of your family from 2 different places. That's, you get what I'm saying? Like, wait a second, there's some truth that we have not been given.
Let me ask you this: what history do you know, or have you learned about Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico is the star. Puerto Rico is the star.
The rich port. Remember that. That's the rich port.
Yes. And if you look into history, you'll see that there was a reason that Puerto Rico was so important during the earliest times of America, or the Amari takeover, if for lack of better terms. Like, if you look at that, if you look at the flag of, I think it's South Carolina, with the crest and the star, it's a Moorish flag effectively. And there's a reason that all the Muslim have that crest and the star, but the crest is backwards according to the history we know. It's supposed to represent, like, Africa, the northern coast of Africa and the southern coast of Europe, with Italy and everything like that. That's what they say it is. But if you look at it, Puerto Rico is the fucking star, and the Gulf Coast is your crest. It's the Fertile Crest.
And it's Buccaneers Bay.
Yep.
The piracy, San Juan, and San Juan's flag. San Juan's flag coincidentally has the gold horned U.
Yep.
Oh, look,
it all goes
on it.
What's that?
I mentioned that gold horn U for San Juan flag, and it looked like Danielle jumped on it.
No, I've been waiting for to see what if he was going to say other things about Puerto Rico that I wanted to touch on if he didn't bring up.
Go ahead.
Because
Go ahead.
all right, so are you aware that Puerto Rico is not the actual name of the island?
Yes. Yes, I don't
What is
remember
the
what I don't remember what it is originally called, but I know Puerto Rico is not the correct name.
So Puerto Rico is the name of the corporation that represents the island of Barquay. Barquay is Hebrew and it means brave, the land of the brave. There are historical records, even through the Vatican itself, that shows that the natives spoke Hebrew. And not
No,
only did they
absolutely.
speak Hebrew, they claimed to be from the tribe of Ephraim.
Yep. Yep, that I knew. That I did know. I didn't remember the Barquay, but I definitely know that the further back you look at, I think we were talking about the temple, the temple of David. If you look at
Mhm.
his description in modern day Israel, you don't have the ground penetrating radar that describes the description of that temple at all. But you do have that same description being represented in Pumapunku. Not to mention the same fucking story that it was giants that built it. They conquered it from the giants, right? In the Bible. They marched around the motherfucker like 7 times and then, did this and that and the other fucking thing, right? And some of the walls broke, but most of the walls were intact. Well, didn't you watch the History fucking channel when they were telling you that the fucking aliens built the shit and there was some great cataclysm that happened that some of it broke down? Maybe the fucking story is actually true and they give you this alien bullshit because people are waking up to these truths. Maybe, just maybe.
A barquet is also a 3-sail vessel.
If you look at the history of America, you'll find more Nephilim the older time you go back. The people in Florida were fucking huge. The people in North and South Carolina were fucking huge. The people in fucking Tennessee were astronomically fucking huge. And like if you take a little bit of time and look at the old fucking maps and look at the people that are represented, they don't look like me. They don't look like what we know to be modern day Native Americans. They're swarthy. They're dark skinned. They're as the Hebrew people are described. And they're also as the Egyptian people are described. Then you have Canada, which is just Canada. And then you go up and over and right there, oh, you're in the land of Ur. It's not that difficult to put A plus B. Why did Joseph Smith see those gold tablets? Where were those from? Those are Mayans, dude. The Mayans had all that fucking technology and all that shit like that. And I'm not saying it was like some hokey fucking laser shit. I'm saying like they were in tune with what was supposed to be from the get-go. And that's why like even the Mayans are where you get all of the Hindustan tradition and everything like that. Prince Maya was the first emperor of Hindustan. Prince Maya, really? Yeah, like for real? Where does that come from? Where did he come from? A land far away to the east. Or excuse me, to the west. And on that faithful mountain there's a trident on the side of the fucking mountain. Well, wait, that's Peru. It doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist to put A plus B. Not to mention the Naga people built that town in Cambodia that nobody knows how it was ever built and the fucking aliens built it? No, it was the Mayans. The people, the first people. Like
Angkor
the original peoples. Yeah, exactly. All that shit.
Inglewatt, which it has a lot of mathematical values that's astronomical and off the scales that are hard to believe, that tie into the same numbers that you get from Stonehenge or the Pyramid of
It's
Giza
all the
and all
same
these other
fucking people.
places. Yeah.
Where was Thoth from? The original Atlantean, right? Where's and Thoth is, if you look at Mayan tradition, like it's all the same fucking shit. That's why you had the cocaine mummies and the fucking the corn in the Bible. Wait a second, corn? Really? You mean you have a new world fucking plant in an old world situation without trade? Bullshit. Bullshit. And who ran that fucking trade? And what are we talking about? It's the same fucking trade. Nobody changed shit. Nobody changed shit. They just let us get lost in the sauce.
Think about it. How long would it take to walk across America? And yet,
I think it's done in 3 weeks or something like that.
And somehow today we think that it takes eons for people to populate different sections of the world because it took them thousands of years to travel there. I don't think so. I think that timeline he's got is a little bit more accurate.
You look at if you look at the fucking rubber people or the Olmec civilization, the further you go down, the further back in time you go, even pre-flood. That's why they've got people riding fucking dinosaurs and shit, represented in clay.
There's a painting, I forget the name of it, but it's done by a famous painter, and it's a depiction of someone in the Bible as well, one of the disciples, and they're crossing a river in this picture, and they're actually riding dinosaurs.
I misspoke by I was saying dinosaurs. They're dragons.
Yeah, yeah. Because
Quetzalcoatl.
dinosaurs is a new term that was created to
Terrible
replace.
lizard.
Yep.
But it all through. I mean, even you look at Job. What does it say in Job? It talks about Thoth. It says, "Where did the ibis get its wisdom? Did I not grant the ibis?" That's a bad quote, but basically, did I not create the ibis himself? And it's the Most High speaking to Job. And then there's another reference of who controls the behemoth. Well, I could be wrong, but there's some good evidence that this shit really existed, and we live in a world that has fucking decaying matter, and we call it mountain ranges and shit. Like, all those stories came from somewhere. You get what I'm saying? Like, I could be very fucking wrong, but if you look at the northern coast of Africa, it does kind of look like a giant fucking dragon and a giant fucking fish, which matches some stories that I've heard from history or mythos. You know, like, I'm just saying. You can call me as crazy as fucking all hell, and it's all just theory. You know, I can't prove any of this shit. I've never been to Africa. But I got the googly earth.
All right, real quick, I want to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me. I appreciate everybody showing up. DeFreak, Brielle, Sheila Miller. We got Professor Three Bear here. Everybody else, whoever I'm Tribe, of course. 2MW. Welcome. Appreciate your support. I'm back at you guys.
So who's
Freak,
that
if
question
that's
directed to?
Yeah, definitely who's that one question? Because I've got some answers, but we've all got some opinions, and my answers are just like anybody else's. None of us were
Well,
there.
either way, I already gave him my answer. Go ahead.
I'll go last. I'm curious. You're up, buddy.
I have my own views and opinions of what the Bible says of who we are. And do I believe or deny Jesus? I believe Jesus was the Son of God. Yes.
Well, and as I stated, I said I admit the principal foundations of the parables, and Jesus is such an example.
And I understand.
It's a story. It's a story to show us how to live our life morally in love.
Now,
I'll accept that.
I get why you're laughing. And if I was coming from a different place of what I have not learned, I would be laughing as well. But there's a lot of stuff that I've learned that is not being taught or has been mistranslated. So if you would want
Massively.
to, we could take the time and dive down into that, but I don't want to take away from Keith's show. So I would love to extend an opportunity to do that.
We always say that. Keith, do you mind just leaving us up if you're going to end the show and we can just have a
Well,
conversation?
Well, so
Feel free.
yes and no, but this could also be a good time or a good broadcast to do for my first channel or my
Like
new
if
channel.
you want to do a throw up and let's rock this, because this is like one of my favorite subjects in the whole fucking world. And I'll give my answer very quickly and very short because I'm not trying to be a asshole. Nevertheless, with my understanding, I think that the Romans, specifically the Flavian dynasty and Josephus, I think between that group of people, you have a creation of a religion because you could not defeat a people because they were so devoted to their laws, statutes, and commandments that you had to take it away and you had to say, see, look, it comes from outside of the people that you thought it did. It comes from Rome. See, right here, this is Caesar. He is God, because God meant something different back then because of translation. We understand it incorrectly.
Yes, and that goes into more detail about if you go by the original words and the original definitions and retranslate the Bible. If you just do that to the first two chapters in itself, it tells you a completely different story, that there is two creations, there are two creators, and there's a reason why there's two creators.
And that the serpent, you think about that, the serpent, who is the serpent? But it could also be translated the dragon.
Yes, which is
And
the
who were
creature
the
that
dragon?
is trapped in the bottomless pit.
But
So-
is it that dragon? Is it that dragon though? And here's
Yes.
let me ask my question. And I understand where you would come from, but let me ask you this. Was Quetzalcoatl not a dragon?
Yes, there was also a few other.
And could it
things
not
that
have
were,
been a
yes.
representation of the original people, the Naga or the Maya? Like, if you look at the translation, and I merely say the translations because obviously, in my understanding, this is your Turtle Island right here, North and South America. The three Indias would include Hindustan. That would be your third India. and the land of Prester John or King David, you know, like the Nile River being the fucking Mississippi or the Great River. The Nile is a Greek word. Is it Greek or is it Creek? You know, because we have that connection there as well, and the Romani, that when if you look at the Cherokee, when the Cherokee were first introduced to Europeaners, they introduced themselves as the Romani Cherokee. And all roads lead to Rome. And where was the central location of the Cherokee Nation? To my understanding, it was right around Rome, Georgia. And I could be very wrong.
Rome, Maryland.
Rome, Maryland. There's many Romes. There's many, many Romes. And I do know some history, but that's some archaic history that is all sorts of over everywhere because it was intentionally removed for what's the fucking words? Manifest destiny. Anything pre-Columbian was destroyed on sight. They were terrified of that information.
All right, so one of the things that I love learning is etymology. And through the Hebrew language, if you follow the etymology, the Hebrew language is the oldest written language, which goes back to Aramaic, and which was all pictures. Mm-hmm. Now, if you take the very first word in the Tanakh or the Old Testament, beginning, and you retranslate that to the original pictographs, the pictures, it will translate to the Son of God will die by his own hand on the cross. That alone is one of the main reasons why I believe that the whole concept about Jesus in that aspect, not the Roman version, because everything in the Roman version is fake, and even down to the pictures, that the imagery was done by Cesar Borgia.
Well, let me ask you this. Can you, and I see what you're coming at, and here's an interesting connection that this might drive some of your thoughts. Can't you get, if you look at the name Jesus Christ, that was a title, right? The Christos, well, that's clearly a title because it means savior, a savior of the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't Aaron mean the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't Aaron do the same kinds of miracles in a bigger scope?
With the 12 crystals.
One could say that his sister Miriam did bigger miracles, like being able to produce water from a rock.
So now you have the Moshek, right? Mm-hmm. Or the tribe of Moses, mm-hmm. Moshe, or the Mexicans. That's not a hard stretch by any means. Not by any means is it a hard stretch. And you have Aaron. To me, if there's any savior of the people, it would have been Aaron. And that's my opinion. And because there is so much, if you look at those Flavians, I mean, where did Tiberius's ministry start? In Galilee. It was quite an event. It was an uprising of Hebrews. And basically, Tiberius came in with his men and said, "Come, men, I will make you fishers of men." Sound familiar?
Now, to rebuttal all that, in Ephesians 2, it talks about one of the reasons why he came into human flesh is to make one new man out of the two. And how do you make one new man if out of two, if they're let's talk about the two creators, because I know someone also made a comment, and this will tie into this as well, to where the two different men come into play, because it's a twin system that we live in my opinion. But anyway, the word God in Genesis 1 translates from the word Elohim, which is plural, and it
Yep.
means of the supreme God. And
Yep.
It
was the
the
council.
Hebrews were very adamant, in particular, very fine. Make sure absolutely, without a shadow of doubt, you know who you are talking about when they're referencing the Most High. And nowhere in Genesis 1 is the Most High mentioned. Furthermore, if you go down to 127, the word image, it says we were created in God's image, or Elohim's image. The word image comes from the Hebrew word salem, which means a phantom, a shade, an illusion.
An essence.
Then, yes, what's it called? Hypocrite as well. That's also in the definition. So,
Yes. Yes,
then
something that is but is not.
Yep. And if you continue reading the beginning part of Genesis 2, it goes that he rested from his work. And the word work is mentioned twice. It comes from the same word malika, which means deputyship. And in order to become a deputy, you need to be given authority by a higher power, or a sheriff. So whoever was doing all the creating in Genesis 1 was clearly given the authority and the powers to do so. Then if you continue reading, it's the second creation of a different man. So what was already created is defined in scripture later on in 1 Corinthians 15:45, that there's two different flesh, one of the earth, one of the spirit. And everything in Genesis 1 is of the earth. And then in Genesis 2, you got the Lord that's the Most High, creating the first spiritual man. Not only did he create the first spiritual man, but he breathed in his own spirit, his own Ruach Shadek, into him.
Yep.
So that also makes more sense in, again, 1 Corinthians 15:45, where it says the first Adam was made a living soul, which was what was described in Genesis 1, and the last Adam was made a quickening spirit, and that word translates to revitalized, to bring back to life. Nowhere in any church does it teach anything about Adam being resurrected, let alone anyone else other than a person named Jesus being resurrected. When he goes, I'm the Alpha and the Omega, this is what he's talking about, where he's the first and the last. He was the first spiritual man, and he was the last, which is the combination of the earthly man and the spiritual man coming into the new earthly body, because we have to be given a new body. That is the new body that he promised that would be created, that we would all receive when we go to the new, not to heaven, because when we die we don't return to heaven, Even in Revelation, it states that a new earth will come down, a new kingdom will replace all this, and everything else will be destroyed. And that's where we go to live, not in the heaven where his spiritual form is, but we go to that new earth to live with Yeshua, not Jesus. I just want to say Jesus for simplicity, but that's where we go learn with Jesus for 1,000 years. And then the final battle between the devil and everyone else learning from him has that free choice of
That's
continuing.
hold on. That would be totally forgetting about what it says in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, where it said not an individual pass, or not this generation will not pass before you will see the Son of Man come back. It says it in all three books, meaning that he's already come if he was supposed to come. If the story is true, then he, according to his own, according to the Bible, it should have already happened. And personally, I'm the understanding that Revelation is more about the Mongol invasion of that area during that time, because all of the cities referenced and all of the events can be traced directly to the Khan Empire takeover of that general region. Like, they were not nice whatsoever. They burned the fucking city walls because they stole that information from China. Like, that's historically accurate. And I'm not saying it is, and I'm not saying it isn't. I wasn't there. But if there's any description of the Mongol takeover, it is Revelation without a shadow of a doubt. And I think there's a new, if you look into history, I don't know, you pretty knowledgeable, and so I'm not looking to undermine what you have for knowledge or anything like that. I think that we can all acquire more wisdom and more understanding of what happened.
Well, in the scripture, it tells us of the second coming, and I don't know why people don't read it and see it for what it is, but it even talks about the disciples seeing him after his resurrection, speaking about Thomas even touching him 8 days after. So
Doubting Thomas.
He came once, and then he died on the cross, and then he came again. It's already been seen and touched and felt and everything according to the scriptures that the second coming happened in this generation, as it says. I'm in agreement.
And who came in and destroyed the temple in 3 days?
And of course,
I will ask that.
And of course, that's just my interpretation and my opinion. The scriptures are completely inconsistent. That's why we bring these things about. And that's because of not the translations, the transliterations throughout history. There have been many of them. Language has changed.
I would call them transmutations, because it's mutated into this bullshit.
Well, that's what the literation is. The transliteration, you're going from one literal expression to another, and that's the morphing, the mutation that you're talking about. Phonemes, graphemes, and they're both discerned through morphemes. That's why I like.
And is it interesting?
Hebrew
is
important.
Morphine is a strong painkiller.
Morpheme.
Oh, well, I'm saying morphine, it comes from the same origins. With that close of spelling, it has to come from the same origins. We both know, or we all three know enough about how language was developed from that pictograph to what we have now, and all those spellings that are really, really close came from the same fucking origin.
Mm-hmm.
And to back up what you were saying with Hebrew being the oldest language, if you looked at the stones in, I do believe it's Utah, there's a set of stones that's very heavily guarded by the natives in that area, and basically they have the 9 commandments. It's not the 10 commandments. And I personally think it always was 9 commandments, because the one that I'm disputing is the one that directly relates to the rule of the church over the people, which is not a concept.
So there are
And it's
three
not
now
in
sets of 10 commandments. Are you aware of
right.
that?
Yes.
Like the one you're referring to, are the 9 is fake. There's 9 and they split the 1 into 2 to make it back into 10, and they removed what the original 10 commandments are. Now, to the third set of 10 commandments, those were set forth and put into place back last year in November, when the Vatican went to Mount Sinai and publicly declared, in a nutshell, that the old 10 commandments are no longer feasible for this current world, destroyed a replica of them, and then presented a new set of 10 commandments for the world to adhere by.
Fuck all that. Fuck all that. You
Get
got
ready
me fucked
for
up on that
Sunday
shit.
law. Get ready for Sunday law. That's all I'm going to say.
No. The Sabbath is clearly not Sunday, because Sunday is the day that we worship little Zeus. I'm just saying that's what they put in the temple, and I mean, it kind of pissed some people off. They wrote a story about it. Josephus told both accounts of the Romans and the Hebrews in those stories. Yeah, he was a cutthroat, fucking double trading son of a bitch. Not to mention a member of the royal echelon, and you're telling anybody that sits there and tries to tell me that the royal echelon of the time did not have a direct hand in what got put in and what did not get put in. I'm sorry, that's very unfeasible in the history of mankind. I mean, let's take, for instance, we were talking earlier about the Eastern Empire. There was a point in time where the Rome was taken over during the Flavian dynasty, where they implemented that God was not just man, but also of a divine or Jesus was of a divine essence as well. Like, there was a huge break in the fucking Catholic Church during that time. Like, not to sound like the biggest fucking nerd in the world, but damn, man. Like, I do some real research on this shit, and I'm passionate, so please please excuse me if I sound like an asshole.
You should drop your email in the private chat, and when I get home after work tonight, I'll email you some papers I wrote. I think you would find them rather interesting.
I watched your videos, man. It was pretty interesting. I like having conversations with you. I thank Wizard for letting us, take Rampage over his channel. You're muted.
Sorry, Wizard.
Hey, it's about research, and this is as good as it gets. First-hand accounting and discussion. Opinions matter. We've got to get this shit sorted out. And I think the best way to do it is these types of Socratic debates.
I just look at history as, if we don't know where we're coming from, we're bound to make the same mistakes. And if it all is backwards,
those mistakes.
I agree. We're making those mistakes because nobody pays attention to the history. Nobody, I talk about.
No one's paying attention to how they're blatantly erasing the current history now.
Right. And they conveniently leave things out, like the word swarthy. Why is it called a Dutch braid? You ever wondered why it's called a Dutch braid? It's not somebody like me that wears it. And if you look at what the history book says about the Swarty Dutch, well, they were Melungeons. They were chased around Europe. They were, even King James himself, his son was known as Little Black Boy. How the fuck do you become little black boy and you're not dark as shit? Like, that don't make no goddamn sense. You know, but we don't want to pay attention to all this shit, and we just want to live in fucking. I get where Paul's coming from with the whole slavery bullshit. Like, I totally fucking get it. Maybe not totally and fully, but I get it. Because we are slaves, because we're too stupid to fucking figure shit out.
My opinion, the movie that predicted the future most accurately was Idiocracy.
Right? I was just about to say that shit. Fuck yeah. I could not agree with you anymore than that. That was prophecy. That is modern day prophecy, sir. What do you think on that one, Wizard?
Everything in the scripture is a prophecy.
No.
Everything in
The movie
history is
Idiocracy.
Oh, I've never seen it.
Oh, dude, you've got to watch it. It's a precursor for what's to come.
You should put up a trailer for it.
Even a trailer, you would understand it.
100% spot on. Even the president, the first president, too, in this movie.
Fuck yeah.
They predicted the first president in this movie, too.
It's not a great movie because it's a good movie. It's a great movie because it's so true. Scarily, eerily, oddly. Very, very fucking true.
Okay. Well, let's see what we can do about that. Oops.
I know you're not shocked very often, Wizard, but this one you might be kind of shocked with.
This is a clip I just pulled up. We got our thing up there for fair use commentary. 17 USC 107 limitations on exclusive rights. Fair use for commentary on a short preview clip of Idiocracy. Let's see what we got here.
Dr. Lexus will be with you shortly.
It's a weird misprint.
This
Hey,
shit sucks.
Azang, essay.
Yeah, right. Well, not so good. You know, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm seeing things. I think it might be because of these drugs the Army put me on. But if you could just get me well enough to get back to base.
Right. Kick gas.
This is already comedy. 30 seconds in, I already see the obvious outrageous concept, and this is the same thing I see in Paul and why I like Paul. So I might enjoy this one.
Don't want to sound like a dick or nothing, but it says on your chart that you're fucked up. You talk like a fag, and your shit's all retarded. What I do is just like you know, you know what I mean? Like,
No,
Yeah, Jack, I understand.
I'm serious here.
don't worry, Squirrel. Now there are plenty of tards out there living really kick-ass lives.
Love
My first
brothers.
wife started. She's a pilot now.
I need for you to be serious for a second here, okay? I need help.
There's that fag talk we talked about. All right, a little bit. This many dollars, and if you could just go ahead and like put your
There's that public school.
That's weird. This thing has the same misprint as that magazine. What are the odds?
Where's your tattoo? Tattoo. Why don't you have this?
God.
Where's your tattoo? Why come you don't have a tattoo?
Oh my God.
You're not unscannable, are you?
Oh my God.
You're unscannable.
No, no, you don't understand. You gotta let me talk to someone in the army. They're all dead. Everybody I know is dead. Oh my God! Oh. No! No! How this happened?
You should watch the original trailer.
Let me see here.
It's a
What do we
great
got? What do we-
movie. It tells you a lot of what we're getting into, or what we're already in. I mean, you saw how many dollars that was. That's like going to get a gallon of gas nowadays.
Okay. Let's see here. I think I've got this. Let me know if this is the original trailer. It's the one that's got the 20th Century Fox on it, so should be.
At the dawn of the 21st century, the
Yeah,
Army
this is the
began
right
the
one.
top secret experiment.
Meet Joe Bowers, our first subject for the human hibernation experiment. This is highly classified. However, if successful, we believe humans can be stored indefinitely.
However, the trial run was prone to human error.
See you in a year.
And Joe slept slightly longer than expected. Half a millennium, to be exact. From Mike Judge, creator of Office Space and Beavis and Butthead.
Oh my God!
If you were the smartest person in the world, just
this one goes in your butt. Yeah, honestly. This one goes in your mouth.
you were stuck with the dumbest people in history.
If you have one bucket that holds 2 gallons and another bucket that holds 5 gallons, how many buckets do you have?
2? What would you do?
Excuse me. I'm actually supposed to be getting out of prison.
You're in the wrong line.
I'm the smartest guy in the world? Says who?
The IQ test you took in prison. You got the highest score in history.
Even smarter than President Camacho.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of America! In the year 2505,
we got this guy. He's gonna fix everything. So you smart.
The ordinary will be considered extraordinary.
I thought your head would be bigger.
Idiocracy.
For the smartest guy in the world, you're pretty dumb sometimes.
It's such a funny movie.
Okay. Yeah, you got me hooked. I'm gonna have to watch it.
You can watch it for free on YouTube as well.
Yep, I'll be looking it up. Yep. Hard Hat says he'd be a king there.
Yep. That is
All right.
the world of Enslavia and the dastardly land of that other guy, Jack Falcott.
Yeah, let's not get into that one. We're working on that. We're working on that. So
he's getting there.
Yep. Hey, I have to give him credit. You know, I jumped on his panel the other night. He made an amazing talk with Paul the other day that I happened to be partaking in, and you know, if he's really set on that, that's what I support. I support every man change, because it's not until you learn how you can change yourself that you can learn how to change the world. So
change starts inside of your own home.
Yep, absolutely. So in the meantime, folks, we're over 2 hours, and that's not my normal partay on this kind of panel. I don't want to make them too long, informative type ones. Otherwise, we lose viewers and stuff. And if it ever becomes a drama panel, then we'll go for 8 hours a day. I wouldn't have any problem with that if that's what I was into. But for these here, we're going to keep them as shorter as possible. And I do want to appreciate everybody that shows up on the panel and in the chat. Appreciate all your support. Please make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There are PayPal links down below in case anybody wants to share some love. And with that, we're going to close out. What do you got to say, guys?
I dropped my email in the private chat. Yeah, great conversation. I appreciate you, Wizard, as always. You're definitely an inspiration, and we'll get there. I'll get some really nice flower boxes out of all these things.
Good deal. Good deal.
Much love.
Well, Wizard, thank you for having me up here, and as always, it was a pleasure. Always fun learning from you and possibly trying to teach others. So, that being said, have a good night.
Absolutely, absolutely, and pay attention, folks. Our brother, the Homeless AI, Danielle, starting his new channel, the Homeless AI, on YouTube. Please go over and check it out. Doesn't have any videos up yet that I know of, but he's getting ready to get into some of these open topic discussions like this. It sounds like to advance our knowledge through sharing. He has a right to express himself, and you have a right to know. I'm open for those kind of platforms. So again, God bless, guys. Thanks for showing up. Enjoyed the conversation. And remember, folks, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back or not. May God bless you and have a good night. We'll see you next time. Bye now.